Since I'm on Facebook.
Hi, my name is Dilip Barman. I'm a Food for Life instructor in Durham, North Carolina. I'm so excited. This is our first event among a group called So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. Food for Life is a nutrition education program that was launched by the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, PCRM. PCRM is an organization that was started by Dr. Neil Bernard in 1985. And the goal of PCRM is to get good nutrition information out of there, improve our ethics in nutrition education, and help to improve health outcomes through food. A lot of times when we talk about health, we don't focus enough on nutrition. So we're a group of Food for Life instructors. There's a couple hundred of us in many countries. We know something about food and cooking. We know something about nutrition. And I'm always in awe of my fellow instructors. So I came up with an idea a few weeks ago. Wouldn't it be great for us to collaborate? So this is our first one, and I ask for any forgiveness with any technical problems. I've never done Facebook Lives. This is my first one. And so we have a rapid fire program today. I'm actually not doing any cooking. I'm going to talk a little about beans. But then we have a dozen of us who are going to be talking about all sorts of interesting bean recipes. So today is the first event. So for So Many Cooks in the Kitchen, today's event is So Many Beans, which you can see here, and I have a good variety of beans. We're going to plan to do this periodically. We haven't decided when the next one will be. Could be in a week or two, it could be in a month. And the good news is that if you're watching live, welcome, we're so glad you're here. And if you're not live, this will be recorded. You can see it right here on this Facebook page, facebook.com/SoManyCooks. And we have some really good news. The Plant-Based Network, which has tens of thousands of subscribers, will be streaming this. So they're going to edit this footage and then give us a couple days, and then we'll post the link. You'll be able to see it on the web or on various devices. So pretty exciting. This is pretty timely because in the era of COVID-19, the CDC has advised that people who have underlying health conditions like obesity, and there's almost 100 million Americans who are obese, diabetes, about 34 million, chronic kidney disease, about 27 million, cancer, another 27 million, or coronary artery disease, about 18 million, are among those who are at greatest risk for severe outcome if they do get COVID-19. That's the sad news, and also sad is that's well over half of us in America. The good news is there's a lot of evidence-based information that there's something we can do about it to avoid getting into those conditions, or if we have them, to manage them, possibly even reverse them. And one of the best things we can do is move towards a plant-based diet. And so that's why we are Food for Life instructors. And with respect to the current pandemic, we are actually going online. And I encourage you to come to fflclasses.org, check it out. You'll see there's a lot of instructors all over who are doing live Food for Life sessions. The Food for Life sessions are great because we do some cooking, and then we do a nutrition lecture. So we're all going to promote our own classes. I have a class coming up in June, each of the Saturdays in June, with a wonderful instructor in New York. We're doing it in combination named Lori. So let me get to it. Let's talk about beans. So all of us are familiar with beans. We have a good variety of beans. Beans, as well as peas and lentils, are called pulses. You'll hear the term pulses. Pulses are the seeds of legumes. Leguminous plants are a common food plant, and they're one of our 4 power plate items. We encourage people to eat from the power plate. So the power plate is legumes, vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. That's our power plate. We'll talk more about the power plate throughout our series. Some examples of non-bean legumes include lentils, green beans, peas, and peanuts. So beans are awesome. They're full of fiber. Fiber only comes from plant foods. Why is fiber good for you? Fiber, no matter what kind of diet you're eating, even if you're eating an organic, whole food, plant-based diet, you might get some impurities. And so fiber binds with impurities and escorts it out and doesn't leave food sitting in your system. Who wants the food to stay in your system? So we recommend in Food for Life a 40-gram per day fiber diet. Most Americans get 10 to 20 grams of fiber, which is woefully inadequate. So we recommend 40. Talk to your healthcare provider, and they'll probably be recommending, maybe not as high as we recommend, but they will be recommending at least 20 grams of fiber. So we recommend 40 grams of fiber. Beans are an awesome source of fiber. For example, a cup of black beans, you can see the black beans here. A cup of black beans has 16.5 grams of fiber. So if you're trying to get the 40 grams we're recommending, you're already halfway there. Fiber also controls your appetite. So a lot of times we have urges to eat. When we eat fiber, that fills us up so we don't keep snacking and eat foods that aren't so healthy for us. Beans are a great source of folate, which is important in pregnancy. It's great for your red blood cells, and they're great antioxidants. They lower our risks of heart disease and cancer. They decrease our blood pressure, and they reduce cholesterol. So one thing that some people say about beans is, Dilla, beans sound good. I like to eat them, but I get gas. So I'll tell you a quick story. I teach in the schools, and I tell my K through 4 kids that if you eat beans, your gut will get used to it. It'll say, thank you for eating such healthy food. And what will happen is the gut will get used to it and overcome generating gas. And there's a couple things you can also do. Soak your beans. I have some beans soaking right now. So you can see that I have beans soaking, and we'll be using this in just a moment. So soak your beans 8 hours, 5 to 8 hours is also enough. Soak them. If you're still having problems with gas, put some baking soda in the soak if you'd like. And then cook your beans to death. So if beans are done say in the pressure cooker in 8 minutes, cook it for 10 minutes if you're having problems with gas. Serve it with ginger. That's another trick to reduce gas. And so what I tell the kids is when you're on break, eat lots of beans. If you do it for a while, it won't be gaseous for you anymore, and you can generate all the gases when you're home and people will forgive you, and when you're back in school, you won't have gas. There's so many kinds of beans. So a lot of us are familiar with black beans, which you can see right here. So black beans are very common, very, very nutritious. I love these Anasazi beans. And one trick I do is I like to put little labels so I'll remember what they are. So these are Anasazi beans. Look how pretty they are. Nice texture and color. So Anasazi beans, they're quite good. They taste a lot like red beans. Kidney beans. You can get navy beans, really good. I like this brand Camellia. They make some heirloom varieties like lady cream peas are kind of unique. They're nice and creamy and tasty. Field peas are a little bit more fibrous and chunky. Pinto beans, commonly seen Mexican food, for example. We also have, I love, I always forget the name, fava beans. I like fava beans. I spent some time in Egypt. My friends in Egypt said that, have told me that a lot of us are familiar with falafel, which is made from chickpeas, but the original falafel, they'll say, comes from Egypt, and they use fava beans. If you've never had a chance to get a fava bean falafel, it's quite good. The only problem with cooking with fava beans is it's better to take the skin out, and I find it difficult. So I soak it quite a bit, and I cook it extra, and I sometimes rub it. But my family's just gotten used to eating the fava beans, skin and all. There's a variety of pulses. Like here we have red lentils. I really like these French lentils. These cook really, really quickly. So these are a nice treat to have. And these are actually soybeans. We make our own milk from scratch, and maybe we'll have a program on making soy milk. So let me show you how easy it is to make beans. What I've done is I've soaked beans. What you should do is rinse your beans and then soak it 5 to 8 hours. And then I'm going to drain it. Okay. I'm going to show you how to do it under pressure. I'm going to rinse it. The water gets a lot of the starches to be soluble that give you gas. Okay. So I'm putting the beans back in. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some water. Now, black beans and Great Northern beans are a little different from other beans. What you want to do is you want to put enough water to just cover the beans. Except for black beans, you want to have an extra 1/4 inch of water. Okay. Don't add salt, and I'll tell you why in a second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some aromatics, things that add some nice flavor. I'm going to add some chopped garlic. And this would be a good time to add some dried herbs. So I'm going to add a little bit of oregano. And this way, these aromatics will cook right into the bean. And I'm going to put this in my pressure cooker. So again, extra 1/4 inch of water. I'm going to put this in my pressure cooker. believe it or not, the bean takes all of 8 minutes. So I'm going to start it. It's going to cook. Now, some of you don't have pressure cookers, no big deal. Put it in a pot. You want to add 2 inches extra water. Put your aromatics in. And then you want to cook it. It depends on the bean. And I have a chart, which on Facebook is going to be shared. But I have a chart which will help you. And so many beans cook in as much as 2 hours. So it does take a long time. You can also slow cook using a slow cooker.
Philip, this is Cindy.
5 to 8 hours. So
Cindy,
that's the end of my program. I'm excited now to introduce my colleague, Lauren Johnson in Iowa, who's going to talk about beans and rice.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Dilip, for the transition there. Welcome to my kitchen here in Cedar Falls, Iowa. So I transitioned to a plant-based diet about 6 months after I graduated from college. And at that point, I'm embarrassed to say I really did not know how to cook very much at all. But what I did know how to do is buy a can of beans, like Dilip had showed, and microwavable rice. Because at that point, I honestly didn't even know how to make rice on the cooktop or in the oven or in an Instant Pot. So that's what I'm going to be demonstrating today, is how to make rice and beans. And you can have it as simply as you'd like it, or you can spice it up a little bit. So that's what I'll show here. I do, kind of like Dilip mentioned, I will batch cook a whole bunch of beans or rice at the beginning of the week. And then I think that's a good thing too. If you have children, you can just pull out some rice or pull out some beans and they can season it as they want. Or if you have other family members who prefer it different ways, it's a good way to just make a plain batch at the beginning, and then you can season to your liking. So to get started, I'm going to show you 4 or 5 ways that I really like rice and beans, but I'm always looking for inspiration. So if there are folks who are watching currently who like to season their rice and bean dishes differently, please post that in the comments. I would love to see that. In fact, I have one here at the end that I don't really have a plan for seasoning. So I'll check out the comments here after my section wraps up and see if there's a new idea for me to try out right after lunch or for lunch. Okay, so my go-to has always been like a Mexican-inspired rice and bean dish, because in the past, if anything had salsa on it, I was like guaranteed to eat it. I love Mexican food, love salsas. So that's what I'll show you here first. For a Mexican dish, I usually do like black beans, and then I just have brown rice here. Now, for me, in the past, I would just have rice and beans, and I almost always had spinach or kale, like a raw, fresh leafy green. So what I would do, and I should mention, these bowls are all a little bit small. If I was eating this for a meal, I'd probably have like 2 to 3 times this amount, but just for sake of showing you, I'm doing this. So I'm just gonna shred a little bit of fresh spinach here. And then when I go to reheat my rice and beans, the spinach will wilt a little bit and cook. Now you could steam it separately, but I just find that this works well. So that's what I would do. I will microwave this, let's say for 2 minutes until it's warm, and then I would just spoon on a drop of your favorite salsa. I really like green salsa, but whatever you like, just throw that on. And then I have some green onions here that I might sprinkle on the top once it's finished. If you think of a Mexican-inspired dish, you could also add corn, you could add avocado, you could add cilantro at the end. I probably won't cook it with the cilantro, but I'll certainly add that at the end. So really, whatever vegetables you have on hand, add them. That goes for all of these that I'm showing. The more vegetables you have, the more nutrients you're getting, the more colorful your dish. That's the beauty of plant-based nutrition, is that it's so colorful and nutritious for us. So Mexican-inspired, number 1. Okay, the second one I have here, I had some frozen edamame that I thawed out, and I'm gonna use that with brown rice. So I really like to do that. You could do it just plain, that would be delicious, but I either add like a soy sauce or a tamari, you could do teriyaki sauce, any of those seasonings. You could also add like ground or fresh ginger, garlic, some of those aromatics that Dilip just mentioned, that would be good. I had some carrots on hand, so I chopped some carrots, which I'll add, because I think that's good. I wish I had red cabbage. I don't have that right now. I haven't been to the store in about a week, so unfortunately I can't add that, but I think it would be good. We did, however, just pick up a big box from a local farmer this morning, so it is getting to be just the start of growing season here in Iowa. And so we got arugula and spinach and radishes, and so I just shredded up some little pretty red radishes, and I'm gonna add those to my Asian bowl. And then that, again, like I said, I would drizzle on maybe some tamari, microwave it, and then it would be good to go. So that's an Asian-inspired one. My third one here, what I did is I cooked white beans. These are like cannellini or Great Northern beans. I had about a can of beans that I cooked them from scratch, but you would drain and rinse your beans, and then I added them to my pot. Well, I should back up. I added onion. So what I did first is I sauteed a really small onion in this pot first and got them browned and caramelized. Then I added the white beans, and then I added about a cup of barbecue sauce. So I made my own barbecue baked beans, which we love. They're super good. So I, again, have served this here with rice, but it would be really good with potatoes. And I would just eat that just plain as is. I have some green onions, again, that I got from Kaiser Farm Fresh this morning that I would sprinkle on as well. So again, adding more color and nutrients and good flavor. So, barbecue dish there. Now this one, I have chickpeas and brown rice again, because I batch cooked it. What I'm gonna do, I made a homemade non-dairy cheese sauce.
Why that happened?
This is from Chuck Underwood. His blog is Brand New Vegan, so you can find him there. This cheese sauce. So I really love like a cheesy chickpea and rice dish. So I'm gonna add some cheese sauce, and then I also have, no, you can just load up. There is nothing bad in this for you all. It's so healthy, so full of fiber and nutrients. So I would load it up with the cheese sauce, and then I have broccoli here. Now, if I'm going to microwave this, you could just microwave the broccoli and it would soften enough. You could steam it ahead of time, but then I would add that to my cheesy chickpea dish. So I'll just throw on a couple there for presentation. Okay, and then my last one is really, I had quinoa. We made it last night, so quinoa and chickpeas. I don't have a plan for it. I have a few other ideas that I could add. So again, arugula, it's a little bit spicy. That might be good with this for a different flavor profile. You could also add just a simple, like oil-free, low-fat hummus would be delicious, or balsamic vinegar, lime juice. I was kind of craving like Indian food this morning, so I saw we have garam masala in the pantry. I thought maybe I'll add that, or any number of spice blends and seasonings out there. So this was a Southwest Chipotle. Might also add that, but I will look forward to your comments on the Facebook page and see if anybody has ideas. So I am going to feast on these as I watch the other Food for Life instructors continue their demos. So thanks so much for watching here in Iowa, and now it's time to turn it over to Carolyn in Montgomery, Alabama.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Strickland in Montgomery, Alabama. So today I am making for you beans for breakfast. It's a chickpea and sweet potato hash that is super easy because everything's chopped up and thrown in the oven. So what I'm starting with is some sweet potatoes. So we're going to go with about 1.5 pounds of sweet potatoes, which really equals out to about 3 medium-sized sweet potatoes. These are locally grown. I try to go with organic, locally grown when I can. I love eating things in season. So sweet potatoes are super good for you as well. We also, we know that beans are very good for you. So incorporating them into breakfast, sweet potatoes is a good way to do it. So keep in mind, when we think about breakfast, a lot of people think about savory breakfast versus sweet breakfast, pancakes, smoothies, that kind of thing. This is a savory breakfast dish. So instead of eating bacon and eggs for breakfast, which is a savory breakfast dish, we're eating things that don't have the cholesterol, don't have the saturated fat, super good for you. So in fact, sweet potatoes are just excellent as far as beta carotene, which our bodies convert to vitamin A. They also have lots of vitamin C. And as Dilip talked about, fiber is so very important. Sweet potatoes have lots and lots of fiber. So what we're going to do is add our chopped up, they're about a 1/2 inch cube sweet potatoes. I leave the peels on. So that may seem a little crazy to some people, but I love sweet potato peels because they actually have way more fiber in them. There's lots of nutrients in the peel. So, and you won't even notice it. Once they're roasted up, you can't tell there's peel in it. So I'm adding to that 1 chopped green bell pepper and 1 chopped red bell pepper, and 1/2 of a sweet onion. So I live in Montgomery, Alabama, and we have onions down here we call sweet onions. They also are known as Vidalia onions for Vidalia, Georgia. But they're a little bit sweeter. They're not quite as harsh. They don't make you cry quite as much when you cut them up. So we're adding 1/2 of a sweet onion, Or if you don't live in the South, then just go with a yellow onion, a white onion, whatever you have. You could use red onion, that would be really pretty. And I am using chickpeas that I cooked myself at home from dried. So you could use a can of chickpeas. You could also order lots of big bulk beans dried like I do on Amazon. So, and these were grown in the United States. They're excellent beans. So when you cook beans or get them out of a can, there's liquid that's left over, which we like to call aquafaba. And I am using, instead of oil on this dish, about 1.5 tablespoons of the cooking liquid. So you could get that out of the can and drain it. You could cook it yourself and use some of that same cooking liquid. So about 1.5 tablespoons of that aquafaba. And then some garlic powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a pinch of sea salt, some fresh cracked pepper, and just sprinkle it over. And then we're just gonna toss it all together. So you wanna get everything nice and coated. The reason we're using aquafaba is it'll help coat the vegetables and then get the spices to stick to the vegetables a little bit better instead of using oil. So Food for Life instructors don't use a lot of oil, and there's lots of reasons for that, but one would be that there's no nutritional value to oil, and it's just added fat and calories for no reason. So we are going to add this whole beautiful container of chopped sweet potato, bell peppers, and onions to a baking sheet. So you could use parchment paper on your baking sheet, or you could use a baking mat, a Silpat baking mat. These things are super handy and you don't end up having to use oil, nothing sticks to it. So the whole thing is going to go in the oven. So pour it out. If you want to add a little more pepper at this point, you could add other seasonings too. If you really like thyme, let's say, you could add some dried thyme or some dried basil, but it's going to go in the oven 425 degrees for about 20 minutes. So when that is baking, while that's baking, we're going to make a sauce that goes over the top. And I have not added the chickpeas yet. So we're going to add the chickpeas after 20 minutes of baking. And then I'm going to make a sauce with my noisy little Vitamix here. So to the Vitamix, we're going to add, we're going to add some 1/4 cup of water, or 4 tablespoons, 1/4 cup of water, a 1/4 tablespoon of tahini. This is a sriracha tahini sauce. So we're adding just 1/4 cup or 4 tablespoons. And the juice of 1/2 of a lemon. And just a pinch of sea salt. You could leave that out. We also don't use a lot of salt with Food for Life cooking. All right, so whirl that up. Oh, forgot the sriracha, the most important part. So sriracha sauce, whatever brand you like the best. And I usually just do a few squirts of it. Really, it's up to you how hot or not hot you want it. I like things kind of spicy. So I added a few squirts of sriracha sauce, and we'll just whirl that up. And that's basically all there is to it for the sauce. So after the vegetables have cooked for about 20 minutes, you want to take them out of the oven and then add those chickpeas to the pan, but also add in that 1/2 tablespoon that's left of the aquafaba or cooking liquid, and then a little more pepper, a little more garlic powder if you want to, and then add it to the pan, stir it all around, and put it in for about 10-15 more minutes. If your oven runs hot, you know, you might want to watch it very carefully to make sure nothing's burning. The biggest thing you want to look for, this is a cooked pan already, of the chickpeas have been added, everything is roasted, and just watch for the sweet potatoes burning, flip them around a few times while cooking. But really the big thing you're looking to get completely cooked is the sweet potatoes. So once they're done, the dish is done. You could wrap it all up, take some greens, wrap it up in a tortilla, and add a big spoonful of your hash to the top of it, and then just drizzle the sauce over, roll it up as a breakfast burrito, or eat it in a big bowl as a breakfast burrito bowl. But it is super healthy, very filling. And before I go play tennis or teach a fitness class, I really like to eat something big and filling like this so I don't get hungry for hours. So I hope you'll consider eating beans for breakfast. And I am going to turn you now over to Janan Orhun in Italy.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm so excited to talk about a legume which has been cultivated in the ancient Mesopotamia since the Neolithic times. That's just about 7,500 years ago. And this is around the time when people started switching from being hunter-gatherers to farmers. And guess what? We're still eating lentils today. And no wonder, because they are not only delicious, but they are a nutrition bomb. This ancient legume is in the culinary traditions of many countries, including Turkey, my country of origin. Lentils are versatile and economical too. You can use them in stews, soups, burgers, even pancakes. And maybe one day I'll share the recipe for the pancake with you as well. 1 cup of lentils will give you about 2.5 cups of cooked lentils. And that's really good money for your value as well. And I said nutritional bomb. Let's look at how much goodness is in 1 cup of cooked lentils. From 1 cup, you will get about 18 grams of protein. You'll get 16 grams of fiber. And Dilip mentioned that we need about 40 grams of fiber in our diet every day. And this is putting you almost halfway there. It has a very low glycemic index of about 13, and that's good for people with diabetes and other problems. It's very high in complex carbohydrates. It's very high in B vitamins, especially folate. You'll get about 90% of your daily value for folate. And even if you don't go into the details of all the other vitamin Bs, it's almost like taking a B complex supplement if you eat lentils on a regular basis. It's also very high in iron. So you'll get about 37% of your daily value, very high in phosphorus, about 36 of your daily value. And there's a modest 8% of selenium, which you can't find in too many other ingredients. And all of this goodness comes to you with only 230 healthy, guilt-free calories. So talking about versatile, they are green lentils, red lentils, and what I don't have are black ones, brown ones, and all different colors. My go-to lentil is the red one because they cook in only 15 minutes. So it's my fast food almost. However, with a pressure cooker, you can use any of the lentils in a jiffy. When I cook lentils, I add some vinegar or lemon juice. I feel that really helps with the digestion. And if you do that, add it at the end because the acids slow down the cooking, prolong the cooking time. And always remember, once you're done cooking your dish, to check the seasoning so you can add some more salt or pepper or whatever you wish to add. Today, I'm going to share with you the secrets of a very basic spicy and sour red lentil soup. The ingredients are here. There's red lentils and all these things. I'll go through the steps. First, you take your lentils and your rice, you rinse them and you put them in a pot and you cover them with enough water to go above by about a good 2 inches. And then you bring it to a boil. And once it comes to a boil, you turn it down and you simmer it for about 15 minutes. In the meantime, you can chop your garlic, squeeze your lemon, get your lemon zest, and so on. When the soup has cooked for about 10-15 minutes, the lentils and the rice would have softened. At that time, you take your tomato paste, and it's best to put it in a little bowl and take some of your soup liquid to soften the tomato paste. And so you add it into your mix. At that time, you also add some salt and some chili flakes, but save half the chili flakes for later. In a couple minutes, you cook it more, and then you take the juice of your 1 lemon and your crushed garlic, and you add it to the soup and give it another stir. Now, if you don't like raw garlic, please add the garlic ahead of time so you don't have that uneasy feeling for having raw garlic in your soup. Once you've done that, you also add half your mint into the soup and you're done. Basically, you then just dish it and garnish it. I'm going to show you, I've also prepared for you a creamy version, which is very easy because you go into your soup with a immersion blender and you get a creamy soup. So we're going to dish out both. This is the creamy version of the same soup. It looks lovely and so easy. Here it is. And I said to put the mint afterwards, some of it. So you decorate it nicely and some more chili. And of course you have to adjust the chili to your liking, because if you don't like too hot, then you keep it. And then I have the original version, which is the base. And voila, you do the same thing. You serve your soup and make sure when you have it, you decorate it with a bit more fresh sprinkling of mint, some chili flakes, and some of the lemons, and your soup is done. Now you can of course alter this, make it with, instead of rice, you can make it with sweet potatoes, which are very high in beta carotene, and they are an immune booster. So these days of COVID-19, who doesn't want to boost their immunity? And speaking of immunity, you can also add to it ginger or turmeric as well. And you can change the flavor profile of the soup by adding different spices like tarragon and turmeric and cumin and curry powder. It's a base, it's a start. You can do what you want with it. And if you're a family that has a hard time with your greens like kale, Swiss chard, spinach, or other greens, this is a perfect soup to use it in. You can chop it finely, have it on the side, and when the soup is ready, just add it to your soup, give it a twirl, and you have your greens. Voila, you're done. The soup is ready. And if you have any questions, please send it through Facebook. We'll be happy to answer them. And remember, do try this at home. That's something to try. And before I say goodbye, I'd like to let you know that my colleague Susanna Dickman from Evansville, Indiana will be joining us. Arrivederci from Italy.
Hello, my name is Susanna Dickman and I'm from Evansville, Indiana. And I am just so excited that you all came on Facebook today to watch us cook. And I am just in awe of the wonderful cooks that I've seen so far and the ones to come. Today, I'm going to make a white bean Alfredo sauce that I'm going to put over some whole wheat pasta. Now, I love beans, and whatever the bean that I'm eating is always my favorite one. So today it's white beans. What I'm going to do is I went ahead and cooked these white beans. I had a bag. Like Dilip, I make sure that I always have a lot of dried beans in my cupboard, but you could also get cans, and I used a Great Northern bean for this recipe. I keep cans on hand when I want to, when I don't have time to make beans and I want to be quick. So I'm going to put my beans, this is about 3.5 cups of fresh beans. I'd like to also mention, I think it was Carolyn who mentioned the aquafaba with the chickpeas. I use the aquafaba in so many ways. I will use it when I want to saute. As it was mentioned, we do not cook with oil. I don't have oil in my house. So I use the aquafaba if I want to saute an onion and garlic before I'm making something. I'll put it in soup. And, if I don't have any vegetable broth, or in addition, I'll use the aquafaba. So the liquid when I cook these went into a taco soup that I made for my husband. I'm going to put in about 1.5 cups of vegetable broth. You want to try to look for a low sodium or a no salt vegetable broth. This is an onion, just sliced. Don't have to worry about cutting things perfectly for this dish because it's all going to get mashed up in the blender. The recipe calls for 5 cloves of garlic. Now, if you're not a garlic lover like I am, you can adjust to your taste. That's one thing that I love about cooking plant-based. You can use, as Lauren said, you can use different spices to make things taste differently. This is something called nutritional yeast. A lot of people who, well, almost all people who are plant-based use nutritional yeast. It's not brewer's yeast or baker's yeast. It is rich in vitamin B12. Some of the nutritional yeasts are fortified. So it's something that we use in the plant-based community to give things a cheesy kind of flavor. It's really, really good. I like to sprinkle on my salads. I always have a lot of nutritional yeast. This is apple cider vinegar. I find that this really has a good kick and adds a depth of flavor. This is some lemon juice. And then another ingredient is called miso. And there I did it, I dropped it in. Miso is from, this one is from soybeans. And miso too, it adds a depth of flavor that is just wonderful. The last two ingredients are oregano and a little bit of chili pepper. And again, you can adjust the chili pepper if you don't like it really hot, you can skip it. But I don't mind if things are spicy. So now I'm going to turn on my noisy Vitamix. That didn't take long at all. Now you can use a food processor if you want to. What I would do if I were, you guys weren't here and we had to be quick, I would just let this stay in my Vitamix because it can run and it can heat this sauce. So I wouldn't have to heat it. What I'm going to do now is just pour it in my pan, and I am just going to carefully, stay with it and just heat it in the pan until it thickens a little bit, and then pour it over my pasta. And the last thing I want to say, here is my finished dish. Now I could eat this whole bowl of pasta. The sauce is on it. There's broccoli. Pasta, some people think that when you eat, you shouldn't eat pasta, that it's fattening. And that is so not true. Whole wheat pasta, again, we've been mentioning fiber and the importance of fiber. Whole wheat pasta has a lot of fiber in it. It has nutrients and it helps you feel full. Even if you have diseases such as diabetes, people are told not to eat pasta, but whole wheat pasta is compacted and it takes us a while to metabolize it, so it doesn't raise blood sugar. One thing I added to this is called a faux parmesan. And let me show you that. I put it in this little jar. And this is just made, the recipe's included, but it's just, I use cashews. You can use almonds, walnuts, but it's cashews, some of that nutritional yeast, and a little bit of salt if you're using. If not, leave it out. And it just, again, adds another depth of flavor. Thank you for watching. I love to have you in one of my classes. I'm going to be having a number of classes coming up in June, a kids' health, a healthy basics, and then a class for those of you who are trying to fight diabetes. So I'd love to hear, if I could say one more thing. We made the sauce last week and we have put it on rice. I put it on potatoes, and I think the next time we make it, we're going to put it on a pizza as a white sauce on a pizza because it's that good. Thanks, guys. Coming up next is Mark, and he's from my home state. I was born in Chicago. He's from Illinois. So Mark, it's all yours.
Hi. How is everybody today? Thank you very much, Susanna. So Mark Cervenik from, just south of Chicago. I'm actually a little bit closer to Joliet, right where the Blues Brothers was filmed about 40-some plus years ago. So kind of showing my age a little bit. So I'm a relatively new vegan, just about 2 years. I've been vegetarian for about 25 years prior. Ate some fish, then eating red meat or chicken. But these last couple of years have been 100% vegan. And one of the things that I know about food is food's a really personal thing. I grew up eating fried chicken and hamburgers. My mother made chicken paprikash. Some of you that are from the Europe descent, you may be familiar with chicken paprikash. Well, one of the things that I also grew up eating was bean salad. Well, the traditional bean salad has oil and eggs in it. So what I've done is I've taken a bean salad, excuse me, that is based on a recipe from cooks.com and veganized it and removed the oil and added a couple of other things on my own. So in this bean salad, and it's called Old Time Bean Salad, what I have is a 16 ounces of beans. I actually have doubled this recipe. This is the beautiful thing about this recipe. The recipes are all posted on a post below the live video. For those of you that are really wondering where those recipes are, they're all there with our profiles and links to our personal websites and Facebook pages and all the wonderful recipes. So this recipe though can be easily doubled, and that's what I'm doing for this one. You can make it half, you can make it a regular size, double it or triple it, and it's really about then adjusting the seasoning. So I've got 32 ounces of beans, and what I'm going to put in that is about 2 teaspoons of white onions, and then I'm going to take three cups, just about 2.5, 3 cups of celery. Put that right in there, and then what also goes in this is some sweet relish. I've got about a half a cup, 3/4 of a cup of sweet relish. Also, what goes in there is a little Dijon mustard. So whatever you like Grey Poupon, you like whatever your local brand is. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and put some Dijon mustard in there, and then a little bit of red wine vinegar. Some red wine vinegar, beautiful red wine vinegar. No alcohol, but just lovely, lovely aromas. So there you go. And then our favorite, you've heard us talk about this lovely thing called nutritional yeast. I love nutritional yeast. I'm going to be really honest with everybody. I miss 2 things. One is sitting with pub nachos, and 2 is having cheese on whatever I eat. The beautiful thing about nutritional yeast is it gives a little bit of a cheesy flavor. Now, I've removed the eggs out of all of this and no oil. So to give it a little bit more depth and texture, I put some nutritional yeast in there. Nutritional yeast goes in, and then just a little bit of celery salt, just to give it a little bit of punch on the back end and kind of enhances the flavor. Not a lot of salt, just a little bit. My recipe calls for 1 teaspoon. You can go a little bit less. I'm just going to sprinkle till I think it's sufficient. And then we're just going to mix this all up. See how easy it is? This reminds me of my mother's, one of my mother's recipes. We used to have kidney bean salad for various parties. They'd be on buffets. My mother-in-law, God rest her soul, used to love this bean salad. And she never even knew that she was eating a vegan bean salad. That's how good this is. And then just mix this up. Now, one of the things that I always like to do is I like to taste it because, you know, maybe I spritzed a little bit too much salt or not enough vinegar or what have you. So I'm going to take a little test. That's pretty good. So now I'm just going to scoop some out. You can see how beautiful this is. Just mix that in real good. I'm going to scoop some out into a bowl here. A little serving bowl. I'm going to throw some little cilantro on the top of this. And there you have it. Old time bean salad. Takes me right back to when I was a little boy on the southwest side of Chicago. Thank you very much, folks. And before I say goodbye, I'm going to turn it over to Lori Courage, who is on the Long Island, beautiful area of Long Island, New York. See ya.
Thanks so much, Mark. It was great to hear all of that. I feel like I was home with your mom learning about the bean salad. Welcome everyone to Long Island, right outside of New York City. It's so great to be here with all of you. I want to welcome you to my kitchen. This is the place where I've had dozens and dozens of Food for Life classes here on Long Island and on Zoom. And we'll be having more classes, as Dilip mentioned. We're going to be teaching a class together on COVID-19 for the month of June. And I'm also teaching some classes on fertility and men's health coming up. Well, I've learned already so much today. I can't wait to try some of these recipes out for myself, but no bean class would be complete without a chili recipe. And the thing, at least I know about chili recipes, is everybody makes it their own. So we're going to start with some of the basics. We're going to start with a really good place with really simple ingredients. And then I'm going to teach you some strategies and maybe secret ingredients you could add to your own. Where I'm going to start is, since I'm a PCRM Food for Life instructor, I'm actually going to start with one of the recipes that Neil Barnard published in his recent book about reversing diabetes that he collaborated with Drina Burton on. And this happens to be a recipe that includes cruciferous vegetables. Most people wouldn't think about adding cauliflower to their chili, but what the heck. Because we're doing this in a condensed time, I'm doing this a little bit out of order, but I'm going to show you all the different parts, and we're still going to talk about it. I just want to be able to cook. So what I'm showing you right here is in the middle of the recipe. One of the things we do is we add, you can see it in here, we add onions, chopped up onions, 1.5 cups. And the first thing we add, you know, most of us have all talked about, oh, you can use water or broth to cook your onions. You can even cook them without any water or broth, just to have, you know, have them sweat themselves. But I found this one really interesting because what you use is a tablespoon of vinegar. So, okay, so a tablespoon of vinegar, onion, and a bunch of seasoning. One of the seasonings also caught my attention. It was cocoa. So I thought, wow, that's really exciting. So one thing I did want to mention, at any time that we're cooking onions in a pan, a lot of times we let it sweat itself, but we can always add a little bit of vegetable broth or water. The important thing to know is when we deglaze the pan, all the goodness at the bottom of the pan is going to come up. So you don't have to feel like you have to deglaze it at every step. And as you can see here, I didn't deglaze the pan. I just stirred it for 3 to 4 minutes. Now the next step in this recipe is to add a bunch of, let's see, this is a head of cauliflower, about 2 cups of carrots, as well as some garlic. So I'm going to go ahead and add that, but I want to tell you how I got those ingredients, because since we can't quite do this in order, there's something you should know if you're going to make this at home. So I happen to have a 13-cup food processor, and I was able to ground it up, but I needed to do it in batches, so I got it really small. And the other thing that I wanted to tell you is about onions. So I heard a few of my colleagues talking about garlic. I heard them talking about garlic before, and I just wanted to mention something. You might not be aware, and this is the way, by the way, that I press garlic. Just push it down and press it, and it's all done. All finished. I love this. One thing you need to know is the thing that makes garlic so healthy is called allicin. It's the active ingredient. And if you don't know that the allicin is actually part protein fragment and part enzyme. The enzyme is heat sensitive. So what that means is that if you cut up the garlic and then throw it right in the pan, you're actually preventing that heat sensitive enzyme from doing its job. So I would rewrite every cookbook, and I would end up chopping the garlic first if you're going to heat it up. So after this is cooking for a while, so I've got this piece done. Now, what you're going to do, so this has been cooking, let's say, for 3 to 5 minutes. Now I'm going to take some beans. I'm going to take these beans. I've already rinsed those beans. We heard how important that is before. And I'm going to add the beans. And I'm also going to add tomato. And one thing I wanted to tell you about beans, 2 things. I heard Dilip before mentioning about ways to keep beans from being gassy. One thing you may not know is you can tear off a little piece of seaweed, kumbo, and if you tear off that seaweed and put it in the pot with your fresh beans, you'll find out that you have less gas as well. And if you want to know who else thinks so, there are some large brands have no salt added beans. And if you look at the ingredients, the only ingredient is kumbo and beans. And that's probably for that reason. I will tell you there's lots of different brands that have no salt added. We never want our salt being more than 1 to 1 in terms of sodium to calories. So if you look at something like this with a serving size of 100 calories, and the amount of sodium here is 15 milligrams, in a regular can of beans, it might be 400 milligrams. So as this starts to cook, and this will now cook for about 25 minutes, through the magic of production, we now have a finished product. And one of the things that you can really understand from this is it tastes delicious, it smells delicious. Here's some secrets I have about beans and chili. One of the things that I really noticed in most chilies is you've got to make it your own. You've got to add different flavors. So some of the ingredients that I would recommend, I added sweet potato. I happen to love sweet potato. We've heard about all the health benefits of it. I also love the fact that we have cauliflower and we have carrots in this recipe, so it's really hearty. Other things that you might not consider: soy sauce, a little bit of low sodium soy sauce. Dark molasses gives it a lot of rich flavor. Balsamic vinegar, red wine vinegar, apple cider vinegar. The end of this recipe calls for a little squeeze of lime juice. It's good to have just a tiny bit of acid on the top of your chili. It gives you a lot more flavor. And what I would also say is that as you cook this, it says to cook it 25 to 30 minutes. My experience has always been leave it on the stove a while. Better yet, leave it in your refrigerator overnight. The next day, what I might do, if I didn't put sweet potatoes in the chili, I put the chili on top of sweet potatoes, white potatoes, all sorts of things. So I hope that that helps you understand that this is a really nutritious food. You can freeze it, it gets great. And I'm really excited to be here, and I can't wait to see your questions, and I can't wait to find out what your secret ingredient is too. So now I'm going to pass it over to Cody in Omaha.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us today. So I'm Cody Stubbe, and I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm going to talk about legumes, specifically chickpeas, and I'm also going to demonstrate this healthy and delicious hummus recipe. All right, so legumes have so many health benefits, but coming from a cardiac nurse, let me tell you a few of my favorite ones. So legumes have potassium, which helps naturally lower your blood pressure, and also is a good source of iron, so that helps with somebody suffering from iron deficiency anemia. It also has fiber, and fiber is just awesome because it helps contribute to the elimination of extra cholesterol out of your body. So it's fabulous, very incredible. So those are just a few of those benefits. So let's get going on this hummus recipe. So it's going to be using one of my favorite legumes, which is chickpeas. All right. So, and this is a oil-free hummus. It's a classic hummus. It's pretty amazing. And I got this recipe from Forks Over Knives. They're, besides PCRM, they're another great resource for low-fat recipes. So check it out. All right, so let's get to it. So we need about 2 cups, or it'd be about 1 can of chickpeas. And you can drain these and rinse them off. Now, save your aquafaba. I know everybody has mentioned the aquafaba, save it, because you can use it for other things like they've talked about before. So I have mine here just in case I need to put a little bit in it. All right, so we're gonna put that in your food processor. Okay, and then 4 cloves of garlic, and then you can chop them up. I just minced mine. If you don't have garlic on hand, you can certainly just use probably about 2 teaspoons of powdered garlic, which works nice too. All right, so I'm just gonna dump that in there. And if you're not a huge garlic fan, you can leave it out. So we like garlic around my house. Let me tell you, I'm sure you can smell our breath. All right, next, we're gonna put in a zest of 1 lemon. And I love zesting, it's just such a fun little thing to do. Okay. All right, you're also gonna use the lemon juice from that lemon. So it's gonna give it some nice flavor. And if you don't have fresh lemon, you can certainly use concentrated. Just kind of depends on what's available, what the grocery store will deliver for you, what's on hand. But usually I don't have problems finding fresh lemons. And lemon is also great in this recipe because I mentioned there's iron in legumes, and So with that, the vitamin C in the lemon or any citrus, that will help with the absorption of the iron into your body as needed. So it's incredible to do vitamin C and iron together. So keep that in mind for future reference. All right, so what else we need? 1 teaspoon of cumin seeds, and you can toast those if you like to do that. If you have the time, it usually just takes a minute, and you just toast them on a dry frying pan until you kind of smell them. It's just maybe a minute, and then you want to take them right off, and you can put them in just like a little grinder, like a coffee grinder, and then just scoop out however much you need for that recipe. And if you don't have that, I mean, I just have cumin powder on hand as well, so you just sprinkle that in there. All right. And then you can put a little salt. Now, if you're watching your salt intake, so if you do have high blood pressure, you're probably watching your salt intake. So you can eliminate that salt, but if you're not worried about that, then go ahead and put a little bit of salt, and I use iodized salt just for your thyroid health. Okay, so we're gonna put that all in there. Okay, I'm just gonna turn it on. Shut it off here, and we scoop it down a little bit. So if it is looking just a little too thick, like I said, you can put just a little bit of that aquafaba. I just love that word. My girls get such a kick out of it. Turn it on a little bit. As creamy as you like. Do just a little bit of this. If you don't plan on using your aquafaba right away, you might want to freeze it, and then it thaws out really good to use. You can also freeze your beans, which is pretty awesome. Okay, almost done here. Oh, it smells delicious. All right. So, again, this is very healthy. It doesn't have the extra oil, which you don't need, because even olive oil has saturated fat in it. It has maybe about 14% saturated fat, but that can contribute to cardiovascular disease because of the cholesterol formation. So, of the clogged arteries. So, anyway, we want to avoid the extra fat in our diets. All right, so here it is. I'm just gonna have a snack. I'm gonna take this up to my kids in a little bit here, and we're just gonna chow down on this. So we love to dip stuff in it, vegetables. We also love to put this on like a pizza crust as the sauce, and then put our vegetables on top, and it's just delicious and adds a lot of great flavor, especially with that garlic in there. And you could also add like parsley in here and mix it up. It gives it a beautiful green color. I've even seen recipes that call for beets, which makes it a beautiful, vibrant pink color. And of course, with 3 daughters, they just love it. So it's pretty awesome. So what else do we do? Oh, we put it on hamburger buns for veggie burgers. That's also a really great way to eat it. So this is the recipe, and if you'd like to search me out for my cooking classes, I got 3 coming up here starting in June, and I'm super excited about it. It's gonna be so much fun, and you can find me at Holistic Dish. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and email, so we'll have the contact information posted. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me here in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm gonna hand it over to Karen in Austin, Texas now.
Thanks, Cody. Hi, welcome to my kitchen. I just really quick, I turned my health around with the plant-based diet over 20 years ago, still going, feel better, almost 60 than I did in my 20s. So I'm happy to share that with everyone who wants to listen. I'm going to be sharing a recipe that I created today. It is a bean burger. I call it a pantry bean burger because you can use whatever you have in your pantry. You don't have to use the ingredients that I'm using. The recipe is just a guide. I like to make a recipe the first time the way it was intended, and then add things in that I feel would make it taste better to me, or leave some things out that I prefer to leave out. And I want you to do the same. So I am going to lower my screen in just a second so you can see what I have. But first, I have lined a cookie sheet with parchment paper so the burger will not stick. not using any oil. I've preheated my oven to 425 degrees. And all of my ingredients are full of fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. They're heart protective, they're cancer protective. So I don't need to mention all that. In the interest of time, I'm just going to go over all the ingredients and why I have them in the recipe, and maybe a fun fact here and there. So let's get started. It is a bean burger, so the beans I am using are chickpeas or garbanzo beans. All we need is a bowl and a fork, and I'm just gonna start mashing them up. You really don't even need the fork. I'm gonna end up using my hands. Just gonna give this a little head start. So these beans are full of insoluble fiber, which make it all the way down to colon and feed the cells of your, well, actually they feed the bacteria, the good bacteria down there, and they produce the short chain fatty acids that nourish the cells that line your colon wall. Keep those happy and you've lowered your risk for colon cancer. You can use any bean. I have a grain. I'm using brown rice. You could use any grain you prefer cooked. I like whole grains because they are more nutritious. Like when they mill it and polish it, they destroy some of the nutrients. Right. And then I'm having some red beets. They're raw and they're shredded. And I'm using these for the color and the texture. You could use any root vegetable. You could even use butternut squash. It's not a root vegetable, but that works too. And the red, the phytonutrients in here actually are good for helping your liver, the phase 2 liver detox. So it just like creates, it makes the toxins water soluble so you can excrete them. And then I have some kale. You can use any kind of kale. And I have chopped it in advance. And I'm using Dr. Greger's, isn't this pretty? Lots of colors. So the thing about the, like Laurie was mentioning with the garlic, the same thing with the cruciferous vegetables. So there is a precursor and an enzyme. And when they combine in the cruciferous vegetables, like when you bite it or chop it or cut it, they combine and make sulforaphane, which is a great master antioxidant. And the sulforaphane is not damaged by heat, and the precursor is not damaged by heat, but the enzyme is. So if you hack and hold, like chop and just let it sit for about 40 minutes before you use it, before you cook it, you have all the nutrition. And you can cook the kale. A lot of people can't handle a lot of raw kale. A lot of people just don't like it. They like it cooked. And you can eat more of it when it's cooked. So it's good. All right, so the last thing I have is, the last main ingredient is some chopped celery. I'm doing that for flavor and texture. And celery also can improve the integrity of the stomach lining, so that can like decrease your risk for stomach ulcers. The rest of the things that I have here are for flavor. So I was going for the onion soup mix flavor that we used to put in our burgers when I was a kid. I have some minced dried onion, garlic granules. You could use garlic powder, and I have onion powder. And what else? So you have a little wheat-free tamari. You can use low sodium soy sauce, or if you're allergic to soy, you can use coconut aminos. That's another good substitute for that. I'm using a little bit of salt. I have pink Himalayan salt. If you're not using salt, you really don't need it. Up to you. Then I have nutritional yeast, and this is it's a yeast. It's been grown on beets, non-GMO beets, but it is deactivated, so it's not a live product. I get the non-fortified nutritional yeast because it's still got vitamins and minerals in it, but when they fortify it, they usually use synthetic vitamins, and that can make your liver work harder. Okay, and then I have a little bit of cumin, give it a little meaty flavor. If you don't like that, you can leave it out, and some parsley. And then you guys are going to get the recipe. I might have to amend the recipe, but this is not on the recipe. It's optional. If you want a little smoky flavor, I have some smoked paprika. So I'm going to put that in. And then the last things that I have, we need something that holds this all together. It's looking kind of pretty with all the colors and all the different nutrients and the different colors of food. But I have ground flaxseed that's full of omega-3s, and it's also mucilaginous. It's going to help hold this together. And I also have a little bit of potato starch, which will also bind it together. So the potato starch is resistant starch, so it makes it through your digestive system unchanged. I'm going to ditch the fork for a second and just make a burger. You can get your kids in here helping you do it. They can make smaller burgers. So I'm just going to shape it into a patty. And with that beet, it kind of looks like a real beef burger. I'm going to place it on the cookie sheet and bake it in the oven for 15 minutes, and then flip it and bake it 15 minutes more, and then take it out and we have burgers. This is why I only made one right here. And I like to eat it on the lettuce, piece of lettuce. Really, I like leaf lettuce. You can have one leaf, and I've got the burger, I have lettuce, pickle, tomato, and I would put sprouts on there if I had sprouts. You can do mustard, ketchup, vegan mayonnaise, whatever you like on your burger, and enjoy. So I am going to be teaching some classes in June, preventing and surviving cancer, and the power of food for preventing and reversing diabetes. And also, so diabetes is in July. And then another class in June will be a kids class. So you could take it with your kids or have a little time for yourself while they're learning about nutrition and some easy recipes they can make for you. And now let's hear from Jen in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Hey everybody, I'm Jen, and I'm going to talk to you about another bean that's been mentioned a few times today, and that is the soybean, or a product made from soybean, and that's tofu. So to start off, what is tofu made from? Soybean. And the great thing about soybean is it's one of the few ingredients in the world, in the plant-based world, that is a complete protein, meaning it has all those amino acids that our body does not make for itself. So it is a great thing for anybody to add to their diet. So we don't normally think about eating the soybean unless it's the edamame that we get at the Japanese restaurant, or the regular edamame. And what edamame is actually the young soybean. So it's picked when it's green and it's sweet. A lot of things that we do see today are made with the mature soybean. So they're easy to find. You can get them canned or dried. Dilip showed some earlier, some dried soybean that he uses to make his soy milk with. But once soybeans are cooked, they can be used in almost any recipe that you would use beans in. It's very versatile. So that's the soybean. So now let's talk about the tofu, which is the product that can be a little bit intimidating to people that have not used it before. So tofu is actually made from the mature soybean. They make a milk. It's much like the cheese process. So they take soy milk, they add a coagulant to it, and it curdles, and it's pressed, and it's made into soybeans. So I was a little afraid of tofu when I first started eating it. It comes in this really mysterious package. It's got a lot of water in there. But then I started to cook with it, and I found out how easy it is to cook with. And what a great thing it is, because the flavor profile is pretty much a clean slate. So you can flavor it up into anything that you want it to taste like. And it's a great replacement for meat products. It does come in 2 different types of tofu. So we have the silken tofu, which is very creamy. It's often called Japanese tofu. It's very smooth, and it's great for using in sauces, puddings, dips, purees. It's a wonderful, wonderful product. And then there's what they call the regular tofu, which is a pressed tofu. It usually comes in these water packed packages in the grocery store, which is my next thing. We're going to talk about the different packaging. So we have the water packed packages, and then the shelf stable packages. They all the varieties come with a different level of meatiness, I guess you might want to say. So the silken comes in soft, firm, extra firm, and the regular also comes in soft, firm, extra firm, as well as a super firm. The difference between the different levels is the amount of water that is pressed out during the processing. So the super firm has the most water pressed out. It's very dense and meaty, and it's great for grilling, sauteing tofu, or marinating, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The extra firm and the firm are also good for that. The silken or soft variety of the pressed regular tofu is also great for the purees and things that we talked about earlier with the silken. So for newbies, though, I recommend you start with the regular or the firm, extra firm tofu. It's easier to work with, and it's easier to work with. So I wanted to show you what it looked like and what you do with these weird packages that you get at the grocery store. So this is full of water. And what I did was I cut it open, and I'm going to drain the water out. I'll show you what the tofu looks like. So this is the extra firm tofu, which I use all the time. So most recipes call for you to press it. So what I'll do is take a towel. You can also take a paper towel, and you just wrap the tofu in the towel, and you put it on a plate. And then I'll put another plate on top and put a can on top to weight it down, and that is pressing tofu. And it's a great thing to do. Let it sit for about 5 or 10 minutes. So I usually do that while I'm prepping the other ingredients for my recipes, and then it's all ready to go. So what I have is a few things that I have made, pre-made with the tofu that I want to show you. You can go from appetizers to dessert. Tofu will fit in your menu and any part of your menu that you can do. What I started with was I made a ranch dip. This is a great for your vegetable tray at a party. I challenge any of your friends to guess that it is made with tofu. Now I made this with the soft or silken water packed packages, and you just throw it in the blender, blend it up with the food ingredients, and you've got a great dip. If you want to turn this into a salad dressing, all you have to do is add a little bit of soy milk to it, thin it down, and then you can drizzle it on your salads. Ranch dressing is a super popular thing in the United States, I've noticed. So that is the appetizer portion. Now your soup portion of the meal, I made miso soup. Now some people have mentioned miso before, which is a fermented soy product, and I used in these shelf stable packagings. I use the extra firm, and when you boil it in water, it makes it a little bit firmer even. But when you get miso soup in the Japanese restaurant, it usually has the silken tofu in there, and you don't have to add seaweed to it if you're a little weird with seaweed. I added a little bit of kale to this one, makes it taste great. Okay, the next thing I made, and I did this with the firm tofu. Now you can do the firm, the extra firm with this one, and pressed it out the water, and I made this breakfast, well, I call it a breakfast scramble, but it's really an anytime scramble. It's more like a vegetable hash. You just saute your vegetables up, crumble in your tofu, add a little turmeric to give it that egg color, so it looks like scrambled eggs in there, plus it adds a lot of antioxidants to it. And this is great for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Throw it in a burrito, put it in the freezer. You have an easy grab and go meal. And for a salad portion here, this is baked tofu. So I took the super firm in this case, and I diced it up and marinated it, much like people marinate their meat for dinner. Just let it sit in a marinade for a while, and then I baked it in the oven, cubed it up, baked it in the oven, and I just tossed it on top of a salad. But you can make it into slabs, serve it as a portion, make barbecue with it, make a sandwich. That's great. And so last, but certainly not the least, you can have your tofu and dessert too. So this is the chocolate mousse that I made, and it's made with the soft tofu. And all I did was blend it up, added a little espresso powder to make it a mocha flavor, and of course, cocoa powder. And the only sweetener in here is date paste, which is you can make by just pureeing some dates with water. You put it in the refrigerator, it firms up like a pudding. You can see how solid it is. It's holding those strawberries on there. So there are so many tofu recipes out there. It's a dish that I love. I don't want you to be intimidated by it at all. Give it a try. And the recipes for this will be attached to this, this video, and you can get those after the show. And I'm finished now, and I'm going to hand you over to the West Coast, which is where Cindy is outside of Seattle. So Cindy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cindy Thompson. I'm with Trimazing. I am a health and lifestyle coach and retired fire captain outside of Seattle. And today I am carrying on the soy theme, and I am working with tempeh. So a lot of people have confusion about tempeh. So let's talk about what it is. So tempeh is made from a slightly fermented bean, and I'm going to make a blackened tempeh, by the way, today. It's usually soybeans, but it can be other beans or other grains, and they're held together into a cake by a fungus. It's like a mushroom. It's called rhizobus, and it is a great meat substitute. So as you can see here, I have cut my tempeh into 1/4 inch thick slices, and I am going to brush it with water, just real lightly, because I want my seasoning to stick to it. I'm going to flip them over. And just a little bit of water. You could also use vegetable broth if you wanted. And then I have my blackening seasoning. And you can either use commercial blackening seasoning, or you can make your own, which I have in the recipe. This one I particularly like that I make. It has rosemary in it, which I don't actually see a lot in blackening seasoning. It gives it a really nice flavor. But blackening seasoning is a sweet, salty, savory, sometimes even spicy. You can change the amount of spice that you want, and adds just a really great color and flavor to food. Tempeh will take on any flavor that you add to it. So there is my tempeh that's all prepared. I've done both sides of it, and now I would put it in my pan. And I've already started it a little bit early so you could see how it's going. And we're going to cook this as I'm talking about tempeh. So we're going to put this dry in the dry pan, medium high. And we're not using oil because we're not going to cook with oil, but it doesn't need it. The blackening seasoning is going to caramelize a little bit, and which is exactly what we want, because it's then going to turn kind of black. If things start to stick, you can add a little vegetable oil or vegetable broth or water, and that will help with that. It helps with the caramelizing. So now I'm just going to let it cook there for about 2 or 3 minutes. It goes pretty quick. So let's see. It's time to flip because I already had it going. You can see that it has caramelized and blackened. And I'm just going to let it do the other side. I'm going to add just a little touch of water and let it do its thing. So you'll find tempeh in the cooler section. This is a real popular brand, Light Life. It's in the cooler section with the tofu. Or you can also make tempeh yourself. This is tempeh I made in my Instant Pot. I cultured it. And if you're interested in that, you can go to trimazing.com, which is my website, and check out the blog to learn how to make your own tempeh from scratch. So people often think that tempeh is spoiled when they get it because there's black areas on it sometimes. You can see just some little black spots. And then if I turn it over, that there's quite a few like gray areas. And I see on Facebook, people say, oh my gosh, I bought tempeh, I opened up the package, it's already spoiled, I can't believe it. Well, this is normal. It is fine. It is just part of the fungus. It is like the dark gills under a mushroom cap where the spores are located. These are just where spores are starting to emit. You can eat that, it's perfectly safe, or you can trim it off if you don't like the color. Spoiled tempeh would be pink or green and it will smell bad. It won't have a nutty, mushroomy smell like tempeh usually has. But it's a great meat substitute and very digestible because the soybeans or the grains actually ferment as the tempeh is culturing. So if you have tried tempeh before and didn't really care for the flavor, it was too strong tasting, you can try simmering it in broth or steaming it over water for about 15 or 20 minutes before you prepare it, and it makes it more mild. But it's fully cooked in the package and you can totally eat it as it is. So tempeh is just a great staple item to keep in your fridge or freezer. If you buy it packaged, it has a really long refrigeration time. In fact, this one's good through July 28th and I just bought it. So it's great to have on hand so that you can make a quick meal anytime, quick and hearty meal. It also freezes wonderfully, up like 6 months in the freezer. So I keep tempeh in the freezer. You can put it in the fridge overnight and it'll be thaw in the morning and ready to use. So it's a great staple item. So soybeans, we have had a couple of people talk about soybeans, and here's what soybeans look like. They're just a dried bean. And it's gotten a bad rap. There's been a rumor out there that soy has estrogen in it, and it does. It has plant estrogen, which all plant foods do. But it's not mammal or human estrogen. So it's a phytoestrogen, plant estrogen, and it's actually protective and really healthy. It blocks the bad effects of mammal estrogen, and it won't feminize a man or make him grow man boobs. It's wonderful to include in your diet. So we're going to include a link in the Facebook comments with some literature about the health benefits and how great soy is, and that how adding it to your diet is a really good thing. So I think our tempeh is ready. Let me get a plate. So it's been a couple minutes. It doesn't take long. Sometimes I flip it a few times and let it get really caramelized. But I wish you could smell what this smells like. It smells so good. Spicy, flavorful, all the herbs in it. So this is blackened tempeh. Here you have it. You can see. It is great. It's, takes less than 10 minutes to make. You can put it in tacos or sandwiches, in wraps. You can crumble it up and put it in dirty rice. Really good in dirty rice. It's great in jambalaya or gumbo, or you can eat it just like this. It is super. And I wish we had smell-o-vision. It smells so good. So blackened tempeh, when it's cooked, will keep in your fridge about 2 to 3 days. That is if it doesn't get scarfed up immediately. But I do hope you'll try it out and let me know how it goes. So I do have upcoming classes, and you can check out on trymazing.com, which is my website, and check on the events links. I am working with another Food for Life instructor, Nancy Travis, and we're teaching a boost your immunity in the time of COVID, and that's online. There's 2 sessions that are available for that. And then I'm planning to do one on helping balance your hormones this summer. You can check out my event page, also sign up for notifications on my website so that you get notified when those classes get posted. All right, so now my friend Nancy Travis is going to teach you how to make dessert with beans. No kidding. On to you, Nancy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my kitchen here on beautiful Bainbridge Island, Washington. I'm only about 6 miles as the crow flies from Seattle, but it's actually a 35-minute ferry ride. So downtown Seattle is great and convenient, but we do have to take a boat. So I am excited to teach you today about a dessert with beans. Great. So I've been plant-based diet. I've had a plant-based diet for almost 30 years. And I'm a personal chef here on Bainbridge Island. And even though I eat a very healthy diet, I do like to indulge, and these little cookie dough bites are the perfect indulgence because they are delicious, they're fiber filled, and they're made from beans. So let's get started. The first ingredient we're going to talk about is the medjool date. This is what the date looks like. When you get it in the store, it's kind of the big dates. It has a little hat on it, and you need to take the pit out in order to use them. And I have here about 8 of them that I've been soaking in boiling water. They've been soaking for a while, actually, but we will just put those in the food processor because we're going to give them a little head start in processing the cookie dough. So let's just turn this on. That's pretty good. And they kind of made a mess, but that's okay. We're just trying to pulverize them a little bit, so we're giving them a head start. The next ingredient is garbanzo beans. We've talked about those a bunch today. This is actually dried beans that I cooked. Though if you want to use a can of dried can, that's about 1.5 cups. It's 1.5 cups of cooked beans that you cook yourself. I, as a good Washingtonian, only use Washington State beans. We have some of the best beans in the world, as far as I'm concerned, and they're grown in the Palouse Valley of Washington State. And I use the Palouse brand. I love them. They're nice and big and fluffy. So let's put those in. And now I'm going to put in some peanut butter. If you can get peanut butter with just peanuts, that's the best one to get. If you have to get ones with a little salt in it, that's okay. Just don't put any additional salt in the recipe. So this I got from the bulk department in my supermarket. And yes, and I'm excited. I'm going to be teaching some classes with Cindy here coming up starting May 31st. And you can see all those details on my website or on Cindy's website. My website is sukikitchen.com. Okay, so I'm also going to add some nutmeg and some cinnamon. The cinnamon I use is Ceylon cinnamon, which is the true cinnamon. And the nutmeg, I just used the microplane and grated it. You can also get ground nutmeg, but I find that the fresh nutmeg is a little tastier. I'm also adding about a big pinch of salt. The reason why I add the cinnamon and the nutmeg is not just so much for this recipe, but I grew up always putting cinnamon and nutmeg in all my chocolate chip cookies. I just really love the taste, and I think it adds a little zing. So we're going to put that in. And then I'm also going to put in some vanilla extract. And let's get this going here. Just stop and just have to kind of go a while on these because I'm trying to get an all kind of a consistent cookie dough consistency. It also, I wanted to add, but I forgot to say it before, is that you definitely want to drain and rinse your chickpeas. And you want them as dry as possible because you are adding all that water from the dates soaking. Okay, that's looking great. Nice cookie dough, even consistency. And now we are going to add the oats. So I don't want to pulverize the oats very long. That's why we're adding them last, because then you kind of get the little pieces of oats. If you have rolled oats, that's great. If you don't and just have quick oats, they would work just as well. Today I'm using rolled oats. So I'm not going very long with that one. And now I'm adding some chocolate chips. I like the little mini ones because then you get more chocolate in every bite. These are dairy-free ones. This is the Enjoy Life brand. And if you only have the big ones, that's totally okay. I'm not going to go very long with these because I just want to mix them in. I don't want to break them up and make them even more mini. Okay. Perfect. There's just a couple pulses. And I'm just going to get rid of this stuff. And so now what I do at home is I scoop up my cookie dough balls and put them on a parchment paper. If you don't have parchment, you could use aluminum foil or wax paper. But I think it's nice to have it on parchment paper, or a Silpat is also really awesome. And I load up the parchment paper with all the cookie dough balls, and then I throw the whole thing in the freezer. I wait until they're absolutely solid frozen, and then I take them off the cookie sheet, I put them in a bag and throw them in my freezer. And then those nights when I just need a little something after dinner, a little dessert or a little treat sometime during the day, I can just pull one out of the freezer, let it thaw just a little bit, and then it's a great little dessert snack indulgence, which has all the fiber of the beans and fiber of the medjool dates. The medjool dates also are loaded with potassium and iron. So I don't feel guilty at all eating that. So this is the end of our presentation, and we are going to have some question and answers right now. And I will throw it over to Dilip.
Dilip, you're muted.
All right, so you can see why I enjoy being a Food for Life instructor. I feel so honored to be peers with all these folks. Every one of them, I can't speak for myself, but every one of them did a great job. And I hope you'll find in the Facebook page, there's a document that has references to all the work that we've done, and you can get the recipes. I wanted to just mention a few things before we throw it open for Q&A. One is that what we've been presenting, the Food for Life program, is predicated on a whole food plant-based diet. So all the ingredients are plant-based with no animal products, no animal milks or eggs or meat or fish. So this is all plant-based. And I hope that you can see it's extremely versatile. There's a lot you can make purely with plant-based cooking. The last thing I'll say, and I forgot to say this in my segment, is I wanted to put I mentioned that we all have classes coming up. Please go to fflclasses.org. And finally, I'm really delighted that I made my first film. I'm executive producer of a film called Code Blue, which talks about how a woman took care of her MS. She was able to bring it under control through a whole food plant-based diet. It's called Code Blue, and we are releasing internationally in 3 days. You can stream it and get it on Amazon and other streaming platforms. And then in 2 weeks, it'll be available via DVD. So let's open it to all of us for questions. So are there any questions?
So let's look on the Facebook and see if we have some questions. those out on Facebook land do know we're about 20 seconds delayed. So if you have a question.
While we're waiting, Cindy, there was some dialogue about your tempeh. Can you take a moment to talk about how difficult it is to make your own tempeh?
It's actually very simple. It just takes time, and it's all hands-off time. So basically, you have soybeans, and then you soak them, take the hulls off as much as you can, and then you cook them partially cooked, like 3/4 of the way done. And I use the Instant Pot, makes it very easy. And then you drain them, dry them off, and mix them with an inoculant of that Rhizobus fungus that you can buy online. And in the blog post, I have a link. I use Northwest Ferments, which I really love, but there's lots of other culture companies that will sell Rhizobus for tempeh. You can't use like yogurt. Yogurt is a very different, or apple cider vinegar, mother. Those are all types of different cultures. But you mix that together, and you do add a little bit of apple cider vinegar because that helps the fermentation of the beans. And then I just press it into cake pans that fit in my Instant Pot. You do them about the thickness that you want your tempeh, and you set it there on the low yogurt settings on your Instant Pot. And I didn't realize this till I started making tempeh, that there's a high yogurt and a low yogurt. They're both low, but you want really, really low to culture this fungi. And then it sits in there for 36 hours. So your Instant Pot is off limits for at least 36 hours. And it will grow the white fuzz that's called mycelium of the fungus, and net that whole mass of soybeans together into tempeh. And it's awesome. Then it comes right out of the pan. You can pasteurize it in your oven for, you put it in your oven for 30 minutes at 180 degrees. And that stops the growing process for the fungi. And you've got great, gorgeous tempeh that you can use then, or you can freeze.
So several questions came on that I think anybody could answer. I'll just throw them out and then let folks answer them. Kate Wood, which bean do you consider most nutritious? Nancy Scott has asked us to slowly repeat the website, and I'll let somebody else repeat the Food for Life website. And I think also, Cindy, your website, if you could repeat it slowly.
Yeah, so my website is Trimazing, TRIMAZING.com. So it came from 3 times better than amazing. So Trimazing.
Who wants to handle the most nutritious bean?
They're all nutritious.
Yes.
The one you eat.
Yes.
Right. The one you eat instead of meat, that one.
And I'll throw this out, is we've all heard that if you overcook things, you dilute the nutrients. Beans are so chock full of nutrients. I'd rather you overcook them so it's nice and soft. Don't have al dente beans. Overcook them. They'll be more digestible. Do you lose a little bit of nutrition? I don't know, maybe a little bit, but it's such a small amount.
Yeah, I would add to that as well, that, eat the ones that you like, the bottom line. So I absolutely love chickpeas, lentils. I just found cranberry beans the other day. So dying to try those. They're kind of speckled red and beige beans. It's fantastic.
So there is a question on our Facebook. They don't understand, how do you get aquafaba from canned garbanzo beans?
Oh, that's easy. You just open the can and drain out the liquid. That's the liquid. That's aquafaba, the liquid that came out of the can. Or if you cook it yourself, it's the liquid that's left over after cooking the beans.
There's
and then you just put it in a jar, an airtight jar, and it'll stay in the refrigerator for over a week, sometimes 2 weeks if it's airtight.
And you can freeze it, put it in ice cube trays and freeze it, or put it in a plastic container. Be careful about putting it in a glass jar. I made the mistake, liquid expands when it freezes. And yeah, that's a problem. So if you put too much, you can break the jars.
And then if you're also making...
Or don't store it, just whip it into aquafaba whipped cream and eat it with
yeah.
strawberries. Yum.
Or make meringue cookies out of it. Exactly.
When I also can my beans, besides just doing them in the Instant Pot. But when I do that, I get some extra aquafaba left over after I fill up my jars, and I just can that separate without any beans in it, so I have that shelf stable also.
I wanted to throw out the name Kathy Hester. She's a good friend of mine. She lives near me, and she's written quite a few cookbooks. And she raves about aquafaba. In fact, that's the first time I heard of aquafaba is from Kathy Hester. So Kathy Hester, she's written quite a few vegan cookbooks.
There's a question
Philip, I saw a
online.
question.
Oh yeah, you probably saw
I
the
saw a
same
question
one.
somebody asked about the tofu and why you press tofu. And you don't have to press tofu. It's packed in water. And if you get rid of the water, it helps absorb whatever marinade or other flavors you put in it. But you don't have to. Like sometimes when I make tofu scramble, I'll just drain the water out and put it in without draining it. But it is liquid. It's porous, so it holds liquid in there. And it can water down a dish. So you don't have to. But I recommend it.
There was another question that somebody wanted to hear again about the allicin in garlic and onions, and how it changes how you chop garlic or use garlic.
Yeah. So there's a great resource on this subject. So it's a book that I read a while ago. I certainly have known about it. It's called Eating on the Wild Side. And so what it talks about is the fact that that raw garlic contains the ingredients needed to make allicin. That's the most active ingredient, but that's not the compound itself. So allicin is two substances in garlic that come in contact with one another. So if you're eating it raw, you chew it and it's fine. But the problem is one of the two substances, the heat sensitive enzyme, is heat sensitive. So the recommendation is that if you chop, so what I do now all the time is I will chop up my garlic first. So in any recipe that I make, I chop the garlic first. It has at least 10 minutes to set, and therefore the heat enzyme is protected and you get the reaction you want and you get all the nutrition out of the garlic that you're intending to. But most of the time we all do the same thing. We cut up the garlic just before we throw it in the pan. So it's a behavior and a recipe change to do it earlier. But if you're getting all those nutritional benefits, it's better.
Garlic is one of those superfoods, and I'm lazy. I tell my students that I'm a lazy cook. I look for easy ways to do things. So I don't do this. Garlic is so good for you. The best way to prepare garlic is to press it, because the nutrition in garlic is encased in its cells. And by pressing it, you get even more nutrition. I tend to be lazy. I just chop it, so I have one less thing to clean. But one other cool thing about garlic is if you toss it in to the Instant Pot or if you pressure cook it, you get a beautiful roasted garlic, which has a nice flavor. It's very mellow flavor.
We had a question about quickly made food. Their husband loves quickly made food. Are there recipes or a recipe you would suggest for a make-ahead meal? And I think that all of the recipes that we made here today are things that that are quick. We picked things that were quick and easy, and there are also things that you could make ahead and keep in your refrigerator or even freeze. So any one of these recipes would be fantastic for quick make-ahead meals to have ready.
Yeah, we made them all in 6 minutes.
Yes.
I would also add that, just because you have a recipe and it says to put certain ingredients in, it doesn't mean that you can't substitute as well. So, for example, if you don't have onions, then leave them out, or if you have some other vegetables or other seasonings you want to try that. Somebody told me a long, long time ago, it must have been my mother who used to cook, chicken paprikash, said, recipe is a guide. It's really intended to point you in the direction, and then you adjust to your own taste as well.
I'd like to say something about quick cooking. I had made these white beans actually last week, and I didn't want them sitting in the fridge, so I put them in the freezer. Cooked beans freeze very well. The sauce too, so It's easy. Sometimes when I make a couple big pots of beans, I will put them in 1 or 2 cup containers and put them in the freezer. So if I think I want to make a bean burger, I'll grab the black beans and have a quick, easy meal.
And I want to also add something I meant to say. When you have something like many of the dishes here, where there's a combination of foods like the chili, you can take pretty much, think about a typical Thursday, and all of your fresh food is maybe on its way out. And you're like, oh, what can I eat? I've already had all of this. You can take many of these type of dishes. You can take the burger and crumble it. You could take the chili. You can take many of these, take your leftover potatoes or sweet potatoes, use a ramekin and throw whatever the heartier part of the meal in the ramekin and top it with the potatoes, throw it in the oven, and in 10 minutes you have shepherd's pie. So, you know, a lot of these are just, how can I deliver this in a different way? And so what might have taken you an hour to cook on the stove unattended is now 2 or 3 meals throughout the week of all different types.
You know, I wanted to mention that you don't really need a lot of fancy equipment. A pan is really all you need. One of our food, we have a whole variety of Food for Life classes, and one of them is for low income. All of us probably were in that category when we were in college, for example. We probably didn't have a lot of disposable income. And so some low income folks, college students, and those who truly are needy may not have access to a lot of equipment. So we don't really, you don't need pressure cookers or air fryers or anything like that. But if you do get a pressure cooker, and they're about $100 or less, I have 2 pressure cookers. I love them. I teach a class just about pressure cooking, and it's so easy. You literally throw things in, press a button, and you're done. So that's one way to have easy food. Another easy technique is what I like to call, I don't call it, it's called waterless cooking. So if you have a high quality stainless pan, you can put a bunch of ingredients in and you cover it and you cook it on low, and basically it creates a convection, and the liquids from the food come out and circulate to cook the food. That's easy, just chopping or putting frozen vegetables in. And that's another nice trick is I like organic. My family buys primarily organic. You don't have to buy organic to eat this way. But I find sometimes instead of fresh, going frozen is a good way to go, because the frozen vegetables are quick picked and they're frozen. I feel a little guilty about the environmental impact of keeping it frozen and transported, but otherwise it's also a good choice. So you can just throw your frozen vegetables in a pan, a pressure cooker, press a button, and you're done.
Everybody's asking about easy cooking, quick cooking meals, and that's why red lentils are my favorite go-to ingredient, because they cook in 10 minutes, and you know, you can cook so many things in 10 minutes. And if you can reuse red lentils, which are chock full of nutrients, you have a very healthy meal very quickly and nothing to worry about. So think about the little lentils.
Sounds like the next class.
So we use a lot of lentils. Really amazing to put into just spaghetti sauce, and it makes it really hearty and filling, and it is just incredible. So that's one of our quick ones that we do at home with little kids, and they love it. And we had a question about freezing hummus, and I personally haven't frozen hummus because it just doesn't last that long that we but I don't see an issue with that. Everybody has said that, you know, beans freeze really well. I get along well with just freezing cooked beans. So, and then the cookie dough bites, she said that those froze really well too. So I don't know. Has anybody had any experience with freezing hummus that they want to?
I have frozen hummus quite a bit because I like to make a big batch, and I have no problem. Actually, what I do is make a big batch and then freeze it in small containers. So then I just take out a small container as I need it. But I would have no problem freezing hummus for 6 months or so, and it freezes beautifully.
You know, the flip side is interesting. It's really fun when you explore plant-based cuisine. Maybe you're eating meat and animal products and are interested for your health or environment or animals or any number of reasons to move in this direction. So when people start investigating plant-based diet, they find their choices expand, because if you look around the world, there's so many plant-based foods in international cuisine. So Turkish food, for example, Yana may want to say something about this. I discovered that in a certain part of Turkey, they actually serve hummus warm, and it's delicious.
Oh yeah.
And so if
Yeah,
you have that frozen
absolutely.
hummus, you can not just bring it to room temperature, but warm it, and then it's an excellent dip. Warm hummus is really tasty.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really delicious, and then you put extra red pepper on it, and you dip pita bread and scoop it out, and it's gone in a jiffy.
So we have some more questions. One is, are we going to do this again? And is there going to be a
Yes.
replay? Is there a replay of this?
So we're already planning the next one. We're thinking of going around the power plate. So remember, here's a quiz. What's the power plate? Don't look. That's
Power
it.
plate.
Talk about legumes, and maybe next time we might do vegetables, and then we'll do fruits and grains. And then there's tons of topics. So please, in the comments in Facebook, tell us what you'd like to hear, because these guys are great. I mean, all of us Food for Life instructors know something about food, and we're happy to share. And I mentioned at the beginning, I'll share again. So when we're done, this will be recorded. It's on our page. And I'm really excited that there's an organization called the Plant-Based Network. They stream to devices. I don't use devices, so I'm out of my league here, but things like Roku, I think it's called, and Apple TV or something like that, and Amazon Fire. So if you subscribe to Plant-Based Network, I think you can subscribe for free. You can watch this show. They're going to pick up our show. So they're going to take what we've done, they're going to edit it and clean it up a little bit, add captions, and give us a couple days. We'll post a link here, so facebook.com/so-many-cooks, and then you'll be able to see it on the website. We recognize, I had notes from some people who are not on Facebook, and so if you give us a couple days, your friends who are not on Facebook, then they'll be able to see it on the web. They don't have to get into Facebook.
Let's see, Yanin, will you be teaching a Middle Eastern cooking class?
Oh, surely, why not? 2 thumbs up, I'll do that.
While we're waiting for questions, maybe somebody who hasn't said anything yet, I think that, Jen, I don't think you've responded yet. Can you talk a little bit about why whole food plant-based and why limited fat?
Well, I went whole food plant-based probably about 10 years ago. It was when my daughter came home from school one day and announced that she was going vegetarian. It was totally off our radar. We were eating healthy, what we thought was healthy. And as soon as I dug into the research of the health benefits for eating a plant-based whole food diet, I was on board. I beat her to being a vegan. She said one day, Mom, I just can't go vegan. I love cheese too much. And the next year she's like, oh, I'm done with that. So she's on board with me too. So yeah, we love it. We feel so good. I feel like I'm in my 40s and I'm on almost 60s, and I can keep up with her. And when I owned my business, which was a plant-based business, I could outlast the youngins that were eating the standard American diet, the SAD diet. So they had to sit down for breaks where I would go all day. So it's a great way to live, and I highly recommend it. And we're so excited to see the world trending towards the plant-based whole food plant-based diet. And once people see that they can actually feel good and what it's like to feel good, because Americans don't know what it's like to feel good. They think they feel good until they go on this diet, and then you're one. It'll win you over, definitely.
I mentioned this at the very beginning, and maybe one of you can say it, can repeat it in your own way, but why is this so important in the era of COVID-19? Because that's why we have an initiative to bring more of our classes online. So would somebody like to take that and talk about that?
Immune health, immune health is tremendously improved by a whole food plant-based diet. And if you improve, start eating more beta carotenes and more antioxidants, and more vegetables and fruits will give you more vitamins and antioxidants, which are all improving your immunity system. And this doesn't mean you're not going to get the coronavirus, but if you do get it, gosh forbid, your body will be stronger to defend itself. And also by eating this way, you ward off illnesses such as diabetes, coronary illnesses, like hypertension and other illnesses and other chronic inflammatory diseases, which are all indicated in the statistics of how many people are dying from coronavirus and what illnesses they have. So if you can avoid having these illnesses to start with, then your chances of not getting it or surviving coronavirus, if you have it, will be much more improved. Please chime in and say more.
Right. So my husband is a doctor here in town who works in the coronavirus clinic, testing people to see if they have coronavirus or not. So we've learned over the past several months that we've been going through this together, that the biggest risk factor is age, and that's not something we can do anything about, and hopefully we all live to be a ripe old age. But the next biggest risk factor that we can control is obesity. So that is the number one controllable risk factor with COVID-19. So, you know, if we can decrease our body fat by eating more plants and less animals, then we're all going to be healthier. But the biggest risks for mortality would be diabetes. So obesity is very much related to diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, those kinds of things that come along with eating the SAD diet, as we call it, the standard American diet. So if you can get rid of those pre-existing conditions, then you are going to be much more likely to survive coronavirus if you get it. And you may not even have any symptoms at all, because we know about 25% of people are walking around shedding virus with no symptoms. And so if you can decrease those pre-existing conditions, you know, that you're going to survive coronavirus a lot easier. But if you're diabetic, you're obese, you have high blood pressure, you have pre-existing heart issues, pre-existing lung issues, you know, those are the kinds of things that, you know, that people are dying more frequently with coronavirus.
If I can just add one more thing to that, the governor of New York State 2 weeks ago put up a slide in one of his conferences, and they did a survey of a few thousand people who were the hospitalized COVID people. 96% of them had comorbidities. 96% of the people hospitalized, so the ones who are the weakest, the ones who are most at risk, had comorbidities, all the things we're talking about. So this isn't just a little bit of a challenge or a risk. This is really a defining risk, and it's certainly a risk we can all do something about.
Yeah, eating plant-based won't guarantee that you won't catch something like COVID-19, but eating plant-based reduces your risk, and if you do catch it, it's less likely that it'll be as severe. One thing I wanted to throw out as well is I love being a Food for Life instructor. PCRM is an amazing organization, and everything we do is evidence-based. And I would encourage people not to just trust us, but to do your own research. There are people who advocate all sorts of diets. You will find some people who say, you know, eat non-plant foods for health. And what I would ask you to do is see how many people are recommending that. Look at the research they recommend that, you know, that supports their statement. Look at who funds the research, and then do searches on plant-based diet. You're going to find enormous numbers of people who are saying, please eat plants for longevity, for good health. And they're well referenced. The only thing that I find that differs, there's many people, and I could throw out names, PCRM for sure, PCRM.org. I like Michael Greger, nutritionfacts.org, and it's just a wealth of great information there. But what I would recommend is look at who's doing the research. And in the plant-based community, there's a little bit of an honest difference of opinion. So some of the controversial topics are how much fat. We recommend 10% fat calories. The reason is every single study that talks about reversal of any disease goes away at 10%. So we recommend 10%. There are other credible people who recommend 12 or 15. So that's one area where we have some difference. There's a little bit of difference in terms of nuts, how healthy they are, how much you should eat, but there's tons of commonality. Eat whole food plant-based, which is a subset of vegan. Vegan is great, but vegan can include things like French fries and high-fat foods. So eat whole food plant-based foods with limited fat.
Those are great. There's a couple more questions. What are the best foods to prepare in a pressure cooker like an Instant Pot?
Beans. Oatmeal, yogurt.
Rice, quinoa. I made corn on the cob in my Instapot last night for dinner.
That's cool.
It's my go-to appliance anymore. Whenever I want it, the broccoli I steam for my dish, I put it in the Instapot, 2 minutes. It's not 2 minutes. You have to wait for it to get up to pressure, but I didn't have to worry about it. That's what I love about the Instapot. Leave it and go. Green beans.
Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes. Great in the Instant Pot.
Perfect.
Artichokes.
Yogurt.
And we're not necessarily promoting Instant Pot. There's any number of pressure cookers, even the old-fashioned ones, but they're more risky because they can explode. The new electronic ones.
I use an old-fashioned one.
Yes,
Yeah,
old-fashioned one works. The other thing I use mine almost every day, and most of the time what I'm using it for is I keep all my vegetable scraps when I'm preparing my vegetables, and I throw them in the Instant Pot with some water, and I set the pressure cooker for 10 minutes, and I have beautiful vegetable stock. And then the stuff, I just strain it and put the cooked vegetable scraps in my compost, and then I freeze all that vegetable stock, so I don't have to buy vegetable stock anymore. It's a great zero waste thing to do. A couple more questions. Let's see. Somebody wanted to know some tips for attending social events when you're eating plant-based.
Eat before you go.
Before you go, exactly.
No, seriously, we do. Being relatively new vegans, 2 years now, but been vegetarian for 20 plus years. We will eat before we go, but it's also over time. The dear friends of ours, they've realized that we have a different way to eat, and there's always side dishes. There's always salads. Various options. There's actually a couple of our classes. There's whole segments of the classes or whole sessions where we talk about dining out and eating at events like that, and how to ask for food to be prepared. Don't be afraid. When we're back able to eat out on a regular basis after the social distancing, don't be afraid to ask. This is the way I'd like my food prepared, or ask how people make it. What are the sauces made with? What are how is it prepared, and so forth.
I also like to point out to people. I also like to point out to people when I go into a social situation where there's a lot of food that I know I'm not going to eat, like a barbecue, but it's my friends and I want to go to their house. I might say something like, I probably just won't eat it. And if they notice I'm not eating, I might say, I'm here to see you. I'm not here for the food. I'm here to be with you. And to make it more of a positive for them, and not to worry about me. I'm good. And I, sometimes sneak my own food in my purse, but, but to point out, I'm here to be with you and not for the food.
And then I always bring a dish with me, because I think it's really important to be inclusive than exclusive. And so I want to contribute and not make it I don't want to be a part of your party, but I want to contribute to your party. Number one. Number two, I want people to taste plant-based food and realize it's absolutely kick-ass delicious. And so I bring a big pot of whatever it is I want to eat, but I make enough for everybody to have, because I know it looks fantastic, it smells fantastic, and everybody goes, oh, what are you eating? That looks so good, I really want to try it. So bring lots of extra stuff with you to a party. And if you're going to a barbecue even, make a big salad like the old-fashioned kidney bean salad. Take that, make some seitan ribs if you're going to a rib barbecue, and take a bunch of it so that you have something that you can share and spread the word about. I'm not just eating birdseed. I'm eating fabulous, wonderful, health-promoting food.
One other thing we've mentioned before is Silpat. I don't know if you know, but there's basically the equivalent of that for a barbecue grill. So you can just it's called like a barbecue mat. There's dozens of different types. But the great news is if you go to a friend's house and they're barbecuing, not only do you have your own food, but sometimes our food might crumble a little, fall through the barbecue, or you just don't want to put it on the same grill that all the meat's on. So this gives you an easy cleanup, and it also shows people that it's delicious. So it's just another capability to bring with you. So it's always good. Some of these tools aren't necessary, but this is one if I go to a barbecue, I always bring with me.
You might find it surprisingly easy actually to be plant-based. So when I find, for example, I have a daughter, and as she's been growing up, she's in 5th grade now. When she's invited to birthday parties, we say we're happy to come. We're vegan, and we're happy to bring the cake. So we'll bring a vegan cake or something of that nature. And more than half the time, I would say 75% of the time, I live in the Raleigh Chapel Hill Durham area. It may be different in Omaha, for example, or Shreveport. I don't know, but at least here, more often than not, they say we have you covered. We already have, because you're not the only one. There's other people, you know, who don't eat dairy, for example, and so we have a great vegan choice. And I have to tell you that when people eat vegan food, whole food plant-based food, they're often quite impressed, not just with the health but the taste. When I got married, obviously we had a vegan wedding. And I still get comments to this day from people. We were married some years ago. Some people say it was the best wedding food they've ever had. It was, I host a huge Thanksgiving. It's the country's biggest vegetarian Thanksgiving. The restaurant who puts it on, put my wedding food on. The cake was luscious. People who normally eat eggs said this was better than the cakes they were used to. So you'll be surprised. Make food, take it, share it, and other people will be turned on.
And going back to like going to a social event, going to a restaurant, I've been known to call ahead when we did go to a restaurant. Like a group would go to a restaurant, I knew there was nothing that I wanted there, and I called ahead, just asked if they could make me a salad. I'm vegan, I'm oil-free, and they're happy to do it usually. And when we got there, everybody else was sitting down at the table having to eat what they had, because, well, they were asking, well, can I have what she's having? And they're like, no, she called ahead. But if you go to a pretty nice, a nice restaurant, they're happy to accommodate you with what they have.
Another little thing that works too is if you want to recognize a restaurant for really not just phoning it in, but really providing you something nice, like you said, I always will tag the restaurant on social media and congratulate them and thank them for having a whole food, plant-based, oil-free meal. And I'll let local plant-based communities know that this is a safe place. This is a place that will work with you. And they really appreciate getting the word out, because the more we ask and the more we bring in more people, the more likely they are to actually put something on the menu.
I was going to say, for me personally, so being plant-based has allowed me to be a lot more hospitable too. So I love to host, Avery, my husband, and I just love to have people over and to share food, to share recipes. Even if we have some extra, lunch that we're bringing when we were going into the office, we could bring extras and let people in the office try. So I think it's a really sweet time to share with other people, even if, they aren't making it themselves, but if you can share a recipe or like we all just did today, right? I think sometimes we take for granted all that we've learned. I think once you start to learn, you become really excited about it and you just want to keep learning more. So if you can find people in your community or your neighbors, whoever, to join you in this process, because I think it's a lot easier with community. So I know I've been blessed by these Food for Life instructors and some other friends and family that have joined me in being plant-based, or even just trying recipes here and there. It's been great. So I would encourage you to find those people who will support you and join you in that.
Any more questions?
Salad dressings. Recommendations for salad dressings.
Really good vinegar, really good vinegars. You don't even need anything
Balsamic
except
vinegar.
a really good, right. The really high quality vinegars don't even need anything added to them. Just straight up different flavors of vinegars are super good. But there's also that really quick and easy, the 3-2-1 balsamic vinegar dressing. If you're using a cheaper balsamic that you would find in a regular grocery store, then you could do 3 tablespoons of that regular cheap vinegar, a couple tablespoons of lemon juice, some Dijon mustard, and depending on how sweet your balsamic is, you could add a little splash of maple syrup if it needs a little bit more sweet flavor to it. But the really good balsamic vinegars just don't even need anything. If you can find good high quality balsamic, just a little bit. So we're lucky to have a store here, unbelievably, in Montgomery, Alabama, called the Vintage Olive, that sells tons of different kinds of vinegars of all different flavors. Blackberry ginger, there's all kinds of different flavors, and I don't put anything else on my salad but straight up vinegar.
I also like using pomegranate molasses if you can find it somewhere near you. That makes a wonderful salad dressing too.
Yesterday in my Food for Life class, I made the Good Enough for Guests green salad. And so I still have some of the salad dressing left, and it is just 3 tablespoons of seasoned rice vinegar and 2 tablespoons of orange juice. And it is, you know, the participants in the class are just amazed that something so simple can taste so good on a green salad. So just experiment, you know, think about what your tastes are. And as Carolyn said, the seasoned vinegars, the flavored vinegars, balsamic, they're, you know, the possibilities are endless. Salsa is even something that my son that's one of his favorite things to put on salad.
I wanted to share too that dressing is not a necessary condiment. So my parents were immigrants from India, and they came in the 60s when there was almost nobody here from India. And my mom didn't know what dressings were. So when she'd make a salad, she'd sprinkle on a little lime juice or lemon juice, a little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper. And that's what I do. I almost always have a salad with my meals. And I like to sprinkle, and sometimes instead of lemon juice, I'm a big citrus lover, so I'll put a little bit of tangerine juice, a little bit of, you know, some acid, maybe vinegar. I don't like vinegar, but vinegar is useful with beans to make them a little bit more bioavailable. But I do like a little bit of lemon juice, maybe salt, maybe pepper, and maybe some herbs. And I find that very satisfying because then I'm really enjoying the nice flavors of the vegetables and not so much the dressing.
You can blend beans, like a white bean, with a little bit of apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, lime juice, or whatever spices that you would put in a ranch dressing, a little bit of water, and have a creamy ranch. And there's some vegetables that are, well, fruits and vegetables that get creamy when you blend them, like mango, tomato, cucumber, and zucchini, and just add spices and lemon or vinegar.
And leftover hummus, if you make it a little bit more liquid with some lemon juice and or vinegar, also makes a wonderful salad dressing. If you have leftover hummus, that's hard to have.
And just be careful.
The main thing everybody's saying here, it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to complicate your life. It's very, very easy to eat plant-based. Don't overthink it. Just, you know, like one of our first presenters said, just take some leftover rice and beans and throw it together and you have a great dish. Put some salsa on it. It's not complicated. It sounds complicated in the beginning, but it's easier to eat plant-based than it is to eat the SAD diet, really.
Are there any final questions?
That's what I'm looking for. I just asked if anyone has any final questions, and it looks like we've wrapped them up.
Well, people can keep asking.
They're all cooking the beans.
Facebook page. And
Yes.
So days from now, weeks, months from now, we'll keep an eye.
Oh, we do have a question that came in. It's a great one. Is how can I find our local classes? And we have posted the link in this chat, but we'll post it again as a comment. Is that you can go to PCRM and look for Food for Life classes. The link is in there. It's pcrm.org, and then search for find a class near you for Food for Life classes.
Yeah, and the direct link is FFL Food for Life, FFL classes. Actually,
Perfect.
Let me move, you'll see it there.
That's better. I was trying to look it up on the fly and got the long one.
FFLclasses.org. And also I wanted to quickly mention, yeah, definitely look at FFL classes. Many of us are offering online classes now. So, and I think it's more important than ever. I had a class that was underway when COVID hit, And I was thinking of canceling it, and I said, this is so critical now. So we continued online. And if you take the online class, you won't get to have the wonderful dishes that Nancy or Cindy or Lori or Susanna or Cody or Jen or Mark or Carolyn or Jana or Lauren or Karen, or maybe I make. And by the way, we're just a microcosm. There's about, what, 250, 300 of us, I think. And we are in many countries. I think we're in Australia and Canada. I think we have somebody in the United Kingdom, France. So we're pretty spread out. We have lots of us in the United States. So
Here I am in Italy.
Italy. And we're planning to keep doing this. So there was a question earlier about kale. Kale is very important, and is one of the stores I shop at. They have a nutrient density index score, and it goes from 0 to 1,000. So scale is rated 1,000. And certainly next time when we talk about vegetables, we'll talk about kale. I didn't have time when I was doing my beans, but often when I cook beans, I throw kale in. It's just any excuse to have greens would be great. So kale is certainly good. Somebody also asked something about canned versus cooked beans, and I'm sorry I didn't cover that. But I have a large variety of dried beans. They're so cheap and they're so easy. When I got married, I used to use canned beans, and my wife would say, Dilip, this doesn't taste so good. It's much better if you make it from scratch. And she's right, of course, and I do make it from scratch. But I found that it's useful to have canned beans in my cupboard, because there are times I get home from teaching or doing something else, and it's late and we need to have food on the table. And so I'll open a can of beans and I'm done. I'd rinse it and then I use it. So the question was, is there any benefit or disadvantage? So the benefit of dry beans is less packaging. I think it tastes better. It's more fresh, and you're not using up cans. And it's not sitting in the liquid. If you're using canned beans, rinse it carefully to get rid of all the salt. But nutritionally, if it's easy for you, then forget about what I said about dry beans, buy those canned beans and just eat. Beans are so good, and get used to them. When you eat them and you're not used to eating them, then you may generate gas, but that'll go away.
I just want to add that if you're making a big batch of beans, I figured out that you can do 4 cups of beans in an Instapot, in a 6-quart Instapot, and it will fit. So I have the dried garbanzo beans, I soak them, and then I put them in the Instapot, and it will fill all the way up to the top, but they'll all cook. And then I spread them out on a cookie sheet, and then after they're frozen, gather them up, put them in a bag, and then I keep them in my freezer. And so, it's as convenient as having a can of beans, because I can just go to my freezer and I can get 1.5 cups, and that's a can of beans. Or if I just want a few beans on top of a salad, I just grab a handful.
Yeah, absolutely. They're easy. So just enjoy the beans fresh or cooked. And they're frozen too. I often keep edamame in the freezer. And so if I'm making something and I want a little extra texture or a little bit extra fiber, I just throw some edamame in. So that'd be another thing you could do. Somebody asked about when our next, and they called it many cooks. So we're so many cooks in the kitchen. You've heard too many cooks in the kitchen, so that's kind of negative. So we're so many cooks in the kitchen. Keep an eye on the on the Facebook page. So please like So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. It's what? Facebook.com/SoManyCooks. And we don't know yet, but sometime in the near future, we'll have another one on vegetables. And as I said, this recording will be on the page. If you're not on Facebook, give us a couple days and it'll be on the Plant-Based Network. Perfect. Cindy, did you have any final questions coming in?
No, I think we're all caught up. We're getting a lot of thank yous. And yeah, this has been great for us as well. We're so thankful that all of you came to view and ask questions and leave your comments. And we're just thrilled. This is what we love to do. It all comes from the heart. And we're trying to be creative to reach out to the people who need this information and want this information. And so we're thrilled that you're here. And if you can share it to others that weren't here live, it will be available on our Facebook page. They can watch it anytime. We'll keep our eye on the questions that come up, and we'll be glad to answer those as they come in later. But yeah, we're glad you're here, and we're just happy to be able to teach.
And please forgive us. We've never done this before. I watched everybody else. Everybody else was awesome. I probably wasn't, so I apologize. I started. So
Great.
please forgive us for
You're great, Dilla.
technology
Thank you, Dilla, for
imperfections.
coordinating
None
this.
of us has done this before, so we did our best. Next one will be even better. So
Awesome. And just a reminder that the recipes are there's a link in a Facebook post on the So Many Cooks Facebook page. And you can get the recipes and the information, the bio on all of, it's right below, apparently Mark is pointing. It's right below. I have a fractured view because my iPad doesn't show it both. But so you can look right underneath, there is the link to find out all about all of our instructors that showed you food today. And has their websites, and also has all the recipes that we've talked about and more. So feel free to get those recipes there, and show some love to the So Many Cooks page. And you can even go to our individual pages. A lot of us have the links for that in there as well. And I know a lot of us have more recipes and more resources on those Facebook pages and web pages. We're happy to share.
unless anybody else has any final comments. Thanks everybody for joining. This has been delightful. We'll hope to see you soon. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.